Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. I am so excited. We are jumping on today, and we're kind of going to take on one of the toughest questions that I've been seeing out there right now when it comes to the Jeep and your Jeep JLU. So, as you are jumping on here with me, I'm going to make sure really quickly I am live. This is my first time. I'm going to be streaming to multiple platforms today. Woohoo! We are sharing the information and the love today. So excited. As you are jumping on, please let me know where you are watching from. So, what state you are in, that helps me so much as we are putting together events, as we are putting together information. It helps me to know where in the country or what country you are located in. So, thank you, everyone, for jumping on here with me. Hello, everybody. We got Beth on here, Jody on here. Hello, everybody. So excited. Georgia. Yay. Ohio, Florida, Carolinas. I love it. This is awesome. I love it. Washington, another Florida. Awesome, ladies. I feel seen today. You are so funny, Bunny. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. All right. So I know this is going to be a very awesome, ladies. Oh, you got to hear me twice. So sorry. I was like, where's that coming from? I'm speaking in multiple places. Uh, so, really quickly, I am going to try to stay as focused as I can for this class. If you cannot stay on the entire class, the link that I have shared will bring you right back here to the replay. Do not worry, I will be sending out an email that will send you right back here as well. So you can jump back on, see the replay. It will be available once we are done as well. So, 32 degrees in Pennsylvania. Can only stay for a short time, but we'll catch up on the replay. Awesome. I love it. Thank you for jumping on to get us started. I greatly appreciate that. So, I know without further ado, there are so many questions on this. So, I am just going to go ahead and jump in, and we are going to get started. So, again, make sure you share where you're watching from. That helps me so much as we are working through other aspects of LadyJeepers.com. And we're going to jump in and get started. All right, ladies, so much to cover today. Oh my goodness, so excited. All right, so we're going to jump right in and get started. Hello, Shay. I hope you are feeling better or doing good. All righty. We're going to share my screen. We got New Jersey. I love it. All right, ladies, we are just going to jump in and get started because I know that there is so much we're going to be going over, so many questions for today. So, welcome. Thank you for joining me to the Jeep JLU Information You Can Trust class. This specific class is going to be geared towards questions that have come up for the JLU. But don't worry, if you do not own a JL or JLU, this is important information that I want you to have. So stop searching because here is the real truth about the Jeep JLU. I want to help you get the most out of your vehicle. I want to help you explore your world and see everything that's out there waiting for you. I really want to help you build your confidence. So, the correct information is key. It's hard to know who to trust when it comes to getting information about your Jeep. There is so much misinformation. Yep, even on Google, that it's hard to know what's true and what's not true. So thank you for jumping in here. We are going to get specific. We're going to break through and share the most important and correct information together today. So why am I doing this class? I want to help break through misinformation and confusion because there is a lot of confusion out there online, especially if you Google search, some of the first information that pops up is incorrect, which I will be honest with you, ladies, when I was looking up different information, I was shocked at when you Google search the first things that pop up, some of it is misinformation. And I always want to share everything that I can with you. And this class is about bringing the facts forward and understanding your Jeep for you. So you need to be clear on what you have and understand how your Jeep is right now. This is especially important before making modifications or building your Jeep. Plus, it gives you the confidence in knowing your Jeep for all applications if you ever need it. So, in so many different aspects. So, first off, I want to share today for educational purposes. So, that's something I want you to remember that we are here to educate, get to the bottom, understand these new pieces and parts in the JLU. I'm not on here to say anything negative about any Jeep, any generation, or Jeep itself. There is no good or bad. This is strictly about information. So please keep that in mind. I'm not jumping on here to bash anything. I don't want to make anybody feel like there's good or there's bad or there's mistakes. That's not what this is about. This is about breaking through the confusion and a lot of this misinformation that is out there. I personally enjoy the JLU. I love them. We have them at the events. They are awesome. They're amazing vehicles. So I want to make sure that you have the best information possible. So let's work through this together, ladies. So excited. So excited. And if you're not familiar, if this is your first time on here with me, hello, I am Kristen DeLibero from LadyJeepers.com, and I am going to be guiding you through this class today. And I want you to remember that I am not saying that I know everything. I am always honest with you, and that is something that is really important to me. So I will be honest and I will tell you if there is something that I don't know or I'm not 100% certain on, or maybe there's still some confusion around. I will, of course, do everything that I can to find the answers for you. But I will be honest with you because I don't know everything. I'm bringing forward to you what I do know. And my goal is that I'm going to help you know a lot more once we are done with today's class together. It's going to be awesome. All right, so it's time to dive in. I am trying to keep this class as in-depth as I can, but as short as possible because I know we are in the middle of the day and Thursday. I know it can be hard to get this time to jump in and focus and spend the time here. So, what I'm going to do to help keep me on focus and on track, honestly, is really what this is I'm going to go through a specific piece of information, education, and then I'm going to jump in to look at questions. Otherwise, I will start jumping around, and I'm really going to try to stick to as much as I can because this is going to keep us on track. Well, me on track, and I will do my best to get to every question. I know some of this, as we start working through it, is going to be so in depth, ladies. There might be so many questions that come up. I totally get that. And I'm going to do my best to get to every question. But for the sake of time, to get through all of this information, I may not be able to get to every question. And chances are I might answer your exact question as we keep going through the information. Like it might be one of the next things that I'm going to cover, But don't worry, I will share with you at the end of this class, once we're through everything, a way to get questions to me if I missed yours, because I want everyone to leave with the information that they need. And I don't want anyone to leave with questions. That is so important to me. So, as we're going through this information, if questions come up, um, please go ahead and put them in the chat. And like I said, I'm going to work through and then I will jump back in, work through, jump back in and look at questions. That way I don't jump around and get off track as well. Kim, so this class is not specifically going to help you with your TJ, but this is going to help you to understand the JLUs. So if you know someone that has one, you know someone who is in the market for one, or just to kind of add to your tool bag of knowledge, this will be helpful for you, but not specifically for your TJ for this particular class. So hopefully that helps. I'd still love to have you stay on here, Kim. Um, I know that Jeep in the picture. That's Jack. Yes, it is Jack. Yoo-hoo. So I don't have a JLU, so I was going through pictures and photos. So yes, Jack is going to be one of our Jeeps as we are going through our training today. And thank you to some of you amazing ladies who sent me emails and actually sent me photos of your window stickers, your build sheets, your axles, your differentials. I appreciate all of that so much. So I'm going to jump in. We're going to get started. Awesome. Yay. Love to have the knowledge for all for sure. Kim, thank you. Yes, I feel like it's important. The more we know about multiple different types of Jeeps, the more educated that we can be. And also, if we meet somebody, if we know somebody, if somebody in our family is like, hey, I think I want one of the new Jeeps, this is just great information to have in your arsenal, especially since there are so many questions, so much confusion, so much misinformation as we are talking about this. So just something great to know. Bonnie, yes, you are being seen because Jack is being featured and showcased. So I love it. All right, ladies. I looked through the chat. Hopefully, Kim, that helps you. So we're just going to jump in and get started again. I don't want to keep you here all day, but I want to make sure that you get everything that you are going to need. So I'm going to go ahead, jump in, get started. We're going to start working through this. I kind of have sections laid out at the end of the section. I will jump back over and look at the comments. But again, this is for my focus, not for you ladies to stay on track. This is so I can stay on track. So there is some misinformation out there. So here's some of the things that came up. I did a Google search. I was just curious. I went through forums. I started diving in to see the level of frustration and misinformation that is out there. And I will tell you, I put in Google search. I started, okay, if I don't know and I put in Google search, what information is Google giving me? Here are some of the things that came up on Google when I did my Google search that is misinformation. These are wrong. You will see that all JLUs produced up to this time have the third generation Dana rear straight axle. That is misinformation and that is not true. That's part of today's class. We are going to go in depth into this because this is a huge misconception. Another thing, when I put in what is the M200 axle, popped right up there in Google that the M200 axle is the Dana 44. That is wrong. Why am I sharing wrong information? Because I want you to understand there's a vast amount of it out there. The M200 is a Dana 35. That actually is misinformation. We're going to dive into this because there is so much of all of this just running rampant everywhere out there. And I have to say, when we start talking about all this, that the axle is the largest confusion and misinformation out there. So when we're talking about axles in the JLU. So what are the new axles and why is there so much confusion around these? Well, one, these are new. When these came out, the JLU, these are new axles. These are a third generation axle. So they are not the same as what was on the JKJKU. They're not the same as what was on the TJ. They're definitely not the same as what was on the YJ or the CJ. So you have to understand that these axles are new. They are not identical. They're not the same as any other axles that have been produced by Jeep. That's why they are a third generation. You will see that if you go to Build a Jeep online, if you pull up your build sheet, if you look at window stickers, it's going to say third generation axles because they are new and they are different. So these are not your typical or traditional Dana axles that have been around. There are differences. There are things that have changed. For example, you cannot pull a axle out of a JKJKU and put it underneath a JLJLU. I mean, you can, but I'm saying it's not just going to fit right under there. You'd have to make other modifications. Same thing with you can't just pull an axle off of a JLJLU and just it goes right underneath the JKJKU because there are differences because they're different. So when I say these are not your typical or traditional Dana axles that have been around for a while, we are going to go more in depth into that, but you need to look at these as brand new axles, different axles, and that they are not the old school or traditional axles. So that has led to an uproar in the off-road enthusiast community. I feel like that maybe is where the beginning of some of this confusion and these discussions and these sparks has come from. So, for sake of argument today, we are going to look at these as new axles. We are not going to look at these as how they are in the old school traditional sense of things. We're going to look at these as something totally different. So we're going to jump in and we're going to go axle by axle and go through just a little bit because, again, there's some misinformation and confusion, especially if you're just getting started. If you don't already know some of this information, it can make jumping online or trying to figure things out almost impossible because there's so many different things going on in all these different places. So we're going to start with the third generation Dana solid front axle. Now, all JLU front axles have the new electronic axle disconnect. Why? I know that was another question, another big thing. Why are they doing this new modification or this new change that Jeep made to these front axles? This is honestly for fuel economy purposes. They had to come up with ways to change fuel economy and emissions. So that is what this is. With having that front axle and its electronic axle disconnect, it is not the vacuum like they used to have back in the YJ. But the reason that they did this is for fuel economy purposes. So really what this is it automatically disconnects the front axle in two-wheel drive. If you look at your front axle, it's a solid front axle, but it looks like there's a little box. What that box does is it's going to take, so you have two axle shafts, you have your big differential, you have two axle shafts, and what it's going to do is almost, for lack of better explanation, I look at it as the electronic sway bar disconnect, which is another box that electronically disconnects the sway bar by disconnecting so it's no longer one piece. It kind of breaks it into two. Same thing that's happening with that front axle. That is something that is new. It does it on its own. When you put it in two-wheel drive, it is going to electronically disconnect so that one axle shaft, so you have two, so one of them is going to break it. so that it's no longer one solid axle shaft. What that does is that keeps the ring and pinion gear from spinning. So on your traditional axle, when we're talking old school a little bit here, but even if we look at the JKJKU, it's a solid front axle, which means even though there's not power being sent to those front wheels, there is still rotating mass. Everything, because these two front tires are still moving. So guess what? All the parts and pieces in that front end are still moving, which means your ring and pinion gear is still moving, which means that's a lot of drag and extra weight that is being put on the Jeep. So we're talking fuel economy, going to this electronic front axle disconnect. By disengaging that, your ring and pinion gear are not spinning. There is not drag and weight, as much drag and weight put on your Jeep. So that is going to help your fuel economy. So that is one of the biggest changes that we saw with the front axle. And again, this is all for fuel efficiency. So what is the M186? So the M186, I'm sure if you have a JLU or you have looked at a JLU, you're probably like, oh, what is the M186? What does that have to do with? Why do I keep seeing that? Why is it that I'm seeing that number? So what has happened now is you're seeing on Jeep website, on your build sheet, the name of your axle, 3rd generation Dana solid front axle. Then now online, you're seeing different names for the very same axle. And let me say that this 3rd generation Dana solid front axle is what comes on all the models except for the Rubicons. And then depending on some of the special editions and upgrades and different things like that. So for purposes, we're going to say this is what comes standard on all the models except for the JLU Rubicons. So if you have the Rubicon, if you have the 392, if you do the Rubicon Recon package, all of those are going to have a different axle that we're going to get into as well. So we're going to start with this because if you Google search or you start asking, say you're looking for diff covers, say you are going to re-gear, all of a sudden you're like, well, I have a 3rd generation Dana solid front axle on my JLU. Oh, you have the M186. Wait, what? No, it's printed right here on my sheet. So what is the M186? It really is referencing the ring gear size. And that is the ring gear size in terms of millimeters. So they have gone metric instead of inches. That is another change that you're seeing with these 3rd generation Dana axles. So instead of calling it a 3rd generation Dana solid front axle, you may call to re-gear, you may call to get upgraded parts, and they're going to say, oh yeah, the M186. It is the same axle. Same axle, different name. But now I want you to understand why it's called the M186, because that really is referring to the actual size of the ring gear in millimeters. So that is why you might be like, well, wait, no, this is what my paperwork says. It is an M186 when you start looking at the ring gear size. This is another big piece of misinformation. Is this a Dana 30 front? We're going to talk about this for the rear, for the Dana 35, because that is a hot topic right now. But really, is this a Dana 30 front? It is not the Dana 30 of the traditional Dana 30. This is its own new breed axle. So we're going to compare a little bit. So a Dana 30, traditional Dana 30 that we've seen before in other vehicles, has a ring gear that measures 7.25 inches. Again, it was in inches. And the new third generation Dana solid front axle, or M186, measures 7.32 inches. So, yes, they are very similar in size when you're looking at the design, the measurements, uh, where it's comparative. Like if you're going to compare it to the axles we had before, what is the closest comparison? And yes, it is a Dana 30, but this is an M186 or a third generation Dana solid front axle. So technically, this is where it gets confusing. Depending on who you are talking to, this front axle, technically, you may hear it called 3 different names for the same front axle. That is why there can be so much confusion when you're like, well, wait a minute. What? How can one thing have 3 different names? A lot of it's going to be determined by who you are talking to. So on your paperwork, on the build sheet, on the sticker, window sticker, it's going to say third generation Dana solid front axle from Jeep. So if you are talking to an aftermarket company, um, looking to order gears, different things like that, they may call it the M186. And then if you are talking to somebody who is kind of a old school off-roader, kind of is comparing it to things, you might hear them say that it's the new third gen Dana 30. All of this is going to depend on who you are talking to. When we start talking about the differences between these axles, like this new generation, third generation axle, when you compare it to the traditional Dana 30, it is lighter in weight. It has more strength in different places. And there's other design changes that they have made to help make this a stronger front axle in this third generation. So it really is its own axle. Anytime anything is new to the market or something new with changes comes out, there's this whirlwind and sometimes confusion as the dust settles. So we're still kind of waiting for that dust to settle. But what I want you to know is if you hear any of those 3, third generation Dana solid front axle, M186, new Dana 30, or new third gen Dana 30, it is all referring to this same axle. We are going to jump over because there's only one other axle that you can choose from. And this is the third generation heavy duty Dana 44 front axle. This is something that, again, third generation, it is a Dana 44, but it is still a third generation Dana 44. So it is not the same as your traditional Dana 44. There are differences. Now, if you do upgrade to the Extreme Recon package, you will get this third generation heavy duty Dana 44 front axle with that. We'll get into all these packages and stuff as well. There's so much. I want to go through the most confusing part, which is the axles. But when we're talking about this third generation heavy duty Dana 44 front axle, you are going to see this in the Rubicon. You're going to see this in any of the Rubicons, depending on if you get a special edition, and any upgrade with the Extreme Recon 35-inch tire package. But this still is not your traditional Dana 44 front end. It is wider than the JKU Rubicon. So this new third generation Dana 44, and it started as a Dana 44 wide axle. Now you are just seeing it from Jeep as a third generation heavy duty axle, like Dana 44 axle. But it is 68 inches wide. So that is 2.5 inches wider than the JK JKU. That's a big difference. So these are definitely not the same Dana 44 axles. Again, that's why they are a third generation axle. Now, you may hear this referred to as an M210. Again, because they're referring to the size of the ring and pinion gear in millimeters, what it measures. So if you call about regearing your Jeep, they might say, oh yeah, you have the M210. The M210 is the same as the third generation heavy duty Dana 44 front axle. Does that make sense? I know a lot of like, okay, it has so many different names. How can it have so many different names? Why do people have to call it so many different things? But this is the information when you see there starts to be confusion. And it starts with understanding what the new axle is to begin with, the name of it, what it is, how it compares to our traditional or some of the axles before it. All right, I'm going to jump in and see if we have any questions. I've never seen that M186 anywhere. Most of the time, Anna, you are going to hear that front axle referred to as the third generation Dana straight front axle. Or again, you're going to hear people call it like the new Dana 30 or the third gen Dana 30. But depending on who you are talking to, for aftermarket diff covers and regearing and things like that, sometimes you will hear it referred to as the M186. That's why I wanted to make sure I brought that forward to you as well. M210, not M220. Correct. I know it's confusing, but the front and the rear, so Dana 44 front and Dana 44 rear are not the exact same size. Not a huge difference, but enough that your third generation heavy duty Dana 44 front axle is an M210, whereas the rear will be the M220. We're going to get there. So don't worry. Yes. So all of the front axles on the JLUs have the two-piece disconnect. It does not matter which axle it is. Any of the third generation front axles have that disconnect on there. Again, for fuel economy, mileage, as they're trying to change some things. So yes, they all, doesn't matter which one. All right, I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. So now we get to jump into the most confusing part. Yes. So Jeep did do some good things as they started changing these third generation axles. I love that they went a little bit wider with the Rubicon. So it allows for a little more spacing in there. If you buy the Rubicon, you can upgrade to the Extreme Recon 35, and it comes with 35-inch mud tires. It comes with 456 gears. We're going to jump into that. Cami, no, I have not given the website for the build sheet. I'm going to do that at the very end. So if you cannot stay till the very end, I am going to post it in the comments once we are done with this video. And of course, I will email it to share it. I'm going to wait because I can't get the link to be live while we are live. So I'm going to do it at the end so it's easier to find it, to copy and paste it. And of course, I will be sending it out in an email to all of you amazing ladies. You're very welcome, Kemi. All right. Whew. Time to jump in to the next one. So now we are going to move into the most debated and confusing part of all, the rear axle. This is where things really start to get a little confusing, and there's the confusion, the unknown. And so we're just going to dive right in. So the rear axle is a third generation, brand new axle, totally different, just like the front axle. So the third generation rear Dana straight axle, the third generation Dana HD rear 44 axle, and the third generation Dana 44 heavy duty wide rear axle. That's what they used to call it in the Rubicon. It is not that name anymore. But these are the three rear axle types you're going to see with the third generation. So most of the confusion arises because the new third generation axles. These are new axles. They're not the same as the previous. So there's multitude of names for the same axles. And not to mention, again, there's some wrong information out there. All right. So let's dive in and let's start talking about the rear axles themselves. And let's start looking at where you're going to see these really quickly. Just like we talked about the front axles. In the rear axle, the third generation rear Dana straight axle. I don't have Dana on there, but it is the Dana straight axle. You're going to hear that referred to as the M200. The reason being, again, because we are talking about referencing the size of the actual ring and pinion gear in that axle. Then you have your third generation Dana HD, which is heavy duty, rear 44 axle. And you're going to hear that referred to again as the M220. Same thing with the third generation Dana 44 heavy duty wide rear axle. That is what is going to be coming in the Rubicons now. All right. Time to jump in, ladies. So confusion arises due to the multitude of names for the same axles, not to mention the biggest confusion. What rear axle comes in what model, and how do you know? That is the number one question, the most confusing question, and the one that can be the hardest to get the answers on. So first of all, let's talk about some wrong information that pops up when you start to Google search and look at the rear axles on the JLU. One thing I have seen, and I've seen it published, is that all JLU Wranglers have the third generation Dana rear straight axle. Oh, sorry, ladies. Straight axle. That is incorrect. So not every JLU that has been produced has that rear third generation Dana rear straight axle. We're going to get into who does and who doesn't. So what is correct? We are going to jump in. The third generation Dana solid rear axle. This is also referred to as the M200 rear axle. Again, because of the actual millimeter size and reference of the ring and pinion gear. Now, if you got the manual sport or the optional upgraded limited slip, you should not have this axle, but I'm going to show you how to figure that out in just a minute. So the next question, is this a Dana 35? You're going to hear that. Oh, that's the Dana 35. Oh, you have the Dana 30 front, Dana 35 rear. But they're not. And this is where confusion and misinformation comes in as well. You may hear people call this the third Gen Dana 35, but this is not the original Dana 35. It is its own third generation axle. That is so important. I want you to understand because there are differences that play a big part in this. So when you look at this third generation Dana solid rear axle, it comes with a ring gear that measures 7.87 inches. A traditional Dana 35 has a ring gear that measures 7.62 inches. So there is a difference in that actual size of your ring gear in this third generation axle. So, with that being said, this is not a Dana 35. There have been other upgrades that have been made. It's lighter, it's stronger, does not have C clips anymore. So, they have modified this so that a traditional Dana 35 and this third generation Dana solid rear axle are not the same thing. So, most people are referring to this as the M200. You're going to hear that a lot. So if you're looking at your build sheet, your window sticker, and it says you have the third generation Dana solid rear axle, you're going to hear people refer to it as an M200 quite a bit. You may, again, hear people call it the new third gen Dana 35. All depends on who you're talking to. But this definitely is not your traditional Dana 35. Oops. Hey, hit the wrong button. Sorry, Lotus. All right. So hopefully that helps a little bit because I know there's been some confusion on which axle do I have? And people are saying it's a Dana 35, and somebody told me I have an M200, but my sheet says that it's a third generation Dana solid rear axle. It is a third generation Dana solid rear axle. It will be referred to as an M200, and someone may call it the third gen Dana 35, but please know it is not the same as your traditional Dana 35 that we saw on Jeeps before. Next, we have our third generation heavy duty Dana 44 rear axle. So this is the Dana 44 rear found in the Rubicon and some of the other JLU models. And we are about to jump into which ones because I know that has been a big question. So this also will be referred to as the M220 rear axle, again, because it's referring to the size of the ring and pinion gear. So you might hear, Dana 44, you might hear M220. That is what these are going to be referred to, or the third generation HD Dana 44. Those are all the same. As we were talking about names and what we're speaking about. Okay, now we are going to jump into this. What options played a part in what rear end you have? I'm going to go off what should have been. And then at the very end of this class, I'm going to give you a link where you can put in your VIN and you can pull up and get your exact build sheet for your Jeep so you know 100% with certainty. Because right now, I will tell you, with confusion I've seen, with different people getting different Jeeps, things like that I have seen, I would recommend that you go and get your build sheet so you know for sure. But here's where there was a lot of confusion that came in. Which model Jeeps, which Jeeps have the M200, so that is your third generation straight axle, or the M220, which is the third generation HD Dana 44. So kind of just an overview. If you got a manual transmission, you will have the third generation Dana front straight axle, so the M186, and the third generation Dana HD 44 rear axle, or the M220. different option packages that you got as add-ons or that the dealer got as add-ons is what determines some of the reasons one Jeep got one axle and one Jeep got another axle. So we're going to talk about that for a minute because I know it is confusing. The manual transmission is a standard option. An automatic transmission is an upgrade or an add-on, optional add-on. So if you got the manual transmission, you should have gotten the third generation Dana HD 44 rear or the M220. If you got an automatic transmission, you will have the third generation Dana front straight axle, so the M186, and then the M200 rear. Now, if you got an automatic transmission with the limited slip or the anti-spin differential, you will have the third generation Dana HD 44 rear axle. So some of that is going to know which parts and pieces and upgrades and optional add-ons you have on your Jeep, because that is what is going to play a big difference in which axles you have. So I'm going to leave this up for just a second because it's crazy that when you're looking at a build sheet, standard options, so you have the standard options from Jeep. Then you have additional add-ons. Some of those additional add-ons will change and will override the standard option. That is what happened like with the Sport. For example, the Sport, if you look at the standard options on it, the standard build on it, it comes with the third generation Dana HD 44 rear axle. When you upgraded that, or the dealership did, depending on if you bought it off the lot or if you ordered it, if that vehicle was made with the automatic transmission, it then changed the axle to the third generation Dana rear straight axle. But then if you added the anti-slip differential, you got the third generation Dana HD 44 rear axle. So you can see why there's a lot of confusion here, knowing what Jeep you have, what your build is, what your sticker was, to know which rear end you got with your Jeep. In the new Jeeps like 2021, 2022, there are still additional add-on options that will affect the gear and the axles. So really making sure that you are clear and you know what axles are going to be there based on those add-ons. And it can be confusing. I'm not going to lie. So that's why I'm going to give you the link to get your specific build sheets when we get done today so that you know for sure. Again, because all of that can be so confusing as we are talking about, well, I got an automatic. Did I get the limited slip? What if I got a manual? So all of those do play a difference in what rear axle came in your Jeep. And again, I'm not here to say one is good, one is bad, Jeep is right, Jeep is wrong. What I'm trying to do is help you have a better idea of what you have in your Jeep, or if you're going out to buy a new Jeep, really kind of understanding what are you asking and what are you looking at. So you are educated. So thank you to some of our amazing Lady Jeepers who sent me in some pictures of their actual window stickers off of their Jeeps. Helped me a lot. So this is a Sahara. As you can see, it has standard equipment on one side. Then what was cut off a little bit on the right side was the optional additional add-ons. So we're going to start on this left side and we're going to go through reading this window sticker together. And then I have a couple other window stickers that I'm going to share with you. Again, some confusion. So we're going to start with the easier. So as you can see, if you were looking at this on the left side, this is a Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Sahara. It is an 8-speed automatic transmission, and you can look at standard equipment. So, standard equipment meant this is how it started, the standard that would go in it. So, it would have the 3-4-5 axle gear ratio, third generation Dana solid rear axle. So, it would be the third generation Dana solid rear axle, or the M200 equivalent, is what it would come with. Now we're going to jump over to this right side. These are the optional additional add-ons that the dealership would choose, or you would choose if you were building it. These are the things that are not standard. Well, as you can see circled is the anti-spin differential rear axle, anti-slip, anti-spin. And then you'll notice underneath that it says third generation Dana 44 HD rear axle. So that will override the standard equipment. So by her getting the anti-spin differential as an add-on, you have to pay extra for it. You get the third generation Dana 44 HD rear axle with that different differential in the rear end. So I'm going to explain it one more time. Left side is standard equipment. That's what would come with it if you did not make any other changes. So this Sahara standard would come with the third generation Dana solid rear axle with an add-on, additional add-on. With the anti-spin differential rear axle, it changed the rear axle to have the different differential. So it is a third generation Dana 44 HD rear axle. So one, that shows that there are JLUs that have been produced up to this point that have the third generation Dana 44 HD rear. Not every JLU that has been produced is the third generation Dana solid rear axle. This also showcases really great the difference between standard equipment and when you make an additional optional add-on, and it shows the change. Now, let's jump to our next window sticker. This is a different Sahara. So now we're looking at this window sticker. I know it might be a little hard because it's so many in a row. This was great. I pulled off a forum that someone had shared, which I was really excited about because, so as you can see on here under standard equipment, it doesn't show or mention. So this is a window sticker, not a build sheet, a window sticker. It does not mention what rear axle is in it. But if you go down here to optional equipment, it has the anti-spin differential, which shows the third generation Dana 44 HD rear. So then if you go over to this 2019, that does not have the anti-spin add-on, it is showing the third generation Dana 44 HD rear axles. So some of this has to do with what other packages are added on there and how the dealership bought it as well. So they're not all the same. And I know that can be the most frustrating part is, why can't they all just come the same? They all come with the same gear ratio. They all come with the same axle because different choices, whether we make them while we are online building them ourselves or the dealership makes them while they are online building them themselves, determines what they're going to come with. So I just wanted to show you a little bit so you can see optional equipment, standard equipment, and then we're going to go one step farther. This window sticker does not have anything anywhere about what axles are underneath this Jeep. So for this one, you would need to grab the VIN number off of it, put the VIN number in and get your build sheet, or ask the dealership to see the entire build sheet so that you would know. So There are some discrepancies in the differences of the window stickers. I shared with you yesterday, I went down, visited our dealership, and they don't have the window stickers on any of their Jeeps, which means as I'm walking around, if I were shopping, I do not even have the option to be looking to see what gears are in it, what axles are in it, anything like that. So that's something else. You have to ask for the information. And if it's not on the window sticker, ask for the build so that you can get the information that you're looking for. And again, not that one is better and one is worse, or that one's a mistake or any of those things. It's just being really clear and understanding what you have. So then you know what decisions to make as you're going forward to modify and to build your Jeep. So, since it is not easy to understand which rear axle that you have, I'm going to share with you two things that you can do so that you can figure out which rear axle you have. So, how can you tell the rear axles apart? By looking at them. It can be hard when you're looking at the front of them. There's some very slight subtleties. But the drain plug for the differential itself is what is going to tell you. So if you wanted a concrete way to get underneath your Jeep or any other Jeep, if you were at a dealership looking, this will tell you for sure which rear axle is underneath the Jeep. So this is how you are going to tell them apart by looking at them. So on the M200, I didn't have enough room to type all of it out. That is the only reason it's an M200. So for the third generation Dana straight axle rear, or the M200, the drain plug is in the center at the bottom of the housing. So if you look and you're looking for the drain plugs, this is how you would drain your differential fluid if you were going to do a differential flush. In the third generation Dana straight axle rear, or the M200, it is going to be dead center facing down. So if you were to get underneath the Jeep, this is what it would look like. It would be dead center in the differential, and it would be facing down. So if you were to unscrew it, it's facing straight down. On the third generation Dana HD 44, the drain plug is on the side. So it's still on the bottom, but instead of being direct center, it's on the side and is pointing out. So think of third generation straight axle, M200. You find the plug, it's in the dead center, facing down. On the third generation Dana HD 44 rear end, it is going to be behind that. So it's not dead center. It's going to be offset behind it, and it's going to be pointing to the side. So this is a way, if you were looking, to actually be able to climb underneath a JL or JLU, put eyes on it, and be able to see which rear end is in it. Yes, you can do it by looking at the actual diff cover and the diff itself, but the similarities or the differences are so slim, it can be really hard to pick them out. So to me, this is an easier way because they're different. So it's much easier to be able to put eyes on it and say, okay, I know what this is. Okay, I know what this is. So before we jump over to quickly cover gears, are there any questions so far? I know that was a lot. I know there's a lot of variables. I know, like I said, it can be confusing as we're going through all of this. But I just want to see if there were any questions that have come up before we continue forward, because I do know the rear end and the rear axle has been one of the biggest misconceptions, confusing parts, where people, I think, maybe are the most frustrated because not everything is a concrete answer, like this equals that or this equals that. which I know can be really frustrating, especially as you're trying to get the information that you want to be getting. I know then it can feel even more frustrating. So, oh, the honey-do list. And I will make sure for sure I'm sending out all the information in an email, and I will post it as well in the comments for everybody. Yes, it is. That is a great question. The M220 is wider than the M186. So they made an M220 narrow, and then or I'm sorry, third generation Dana 44 heavy duty. They called it narrow, and then they made one that was that they called a wide. Right now, everything has gone back to the M220. That is a great question. So again, I'm always honest. My take on it is yes, the M220 is a little bit wider than the M186. I'm going to find out 100% sure though on the 2021 2022s that the Rubicons no longer have a significant wide axle. It is now the third generation Dana 44 HD rear axle. I'm going to see if those are the same size as the wide or if they have made any adjustments to that as well. So let me make a note of that. This is a great question. Whoops. All right. Potentially, yes. So this is something I know I was talking to one of our Lady Jeepers about who wanted to axle swap the rear of her JLU with the Dana 44, but the Rubicon with the locker and everything. And the idea, then was trying to figure out with the wide Rubicon axle because of the year, if it was going to be wider in the back and narrower in the front. So that is a great question. And again, I don't not with 100% certainty going to say yes or no. So I will find out before our next class. All right, let me see if there's any other questions. I know that was a lot of information. Yes, I do agree. And that's let me see. So I do agree with this one because this is something a lot of people are saying is that it's misinformation and it's wrong information to say that the M200 is a Dana 35. There are differences. They have made changes, especially when you start talking about getting rid of the C's on them. Like that was something that would fail. So they've done a great job of re-engineering it. Now, it's going to take time for us to know how well those new engineered changes are going to hold up, last, how it's going to work, how they're going to do with specific tire sizes, anything like that. But no, there is a lot of controversy around that there are a lot of people that think it is not fair to even call them the new third gen Dana 35. And some people love the Dana 35. So again, I'm not saying one's good, bad, better, anything like that. So, it is what it is on that one. But no, they're not the same. Great question. So that means you must have a Rubicon. So that is what they're referring to as your lockers. So your front and rear e-locker is a true lock front and rear axle. So that is referring to your actual differential because you have lockers front and rear on your Rubicon, the e-lockers. All right, let me scroll comments again just really quickly. The Rubicon is always its own animal. Um, and a lot of that is not axle based. A lot of that is gear and transfer case, and having your lockers based. But gears and transfer case are really what make Rubicons a beast and their own animals. Yes. Um, so yes. So this when we're talking about different models, the Moab is what they considered because it was only available for a specific amount of time. The Moab was considered one of their I don't want to call them anniversary, but special editions. So one of their first special editions. So that is not your traditional model like Sport S, Sahara, Rubicon. I know the 392 Rubicon is now what I would consider like a model. Is not a anniversary or a special edition. So the special edition Jeeps really are comprised of different uh, build specs from different models of Jeep. So I know that you'll have some of the Sahara and some of the Rubicon features on the Moab. Then you have the Altitude is a new one, or newer. Sorry. But when you start looking at anything that is a special edition or an anniversary edition, you have to look up your build specs specifically for that Jeep, because when they do that, a lot of times, like I said, they'll take parts and pieces from other different build setups to put those together. All right, let me see if I missed anything else. Oh, Kara, I'm so sorry. So a lot of people have had this frustration. Um, when I'm talking about window stickers, I got sent a lot of different photos, which was awesome. And I loved it because there was such a wide variety of what was listed on the window stickers, and what they put on there and didn't put on there. So I will share. We're almost there. I know. I've kept you forever. So I'm going to keep going. Um, but I will make sure we get all of our questions answered. So yes, Kara, you'll need to go ahead and jump back on there and pull up your build sheet so you know for sure what you have. Janetta, Rubicon Recon 2020. That's awesome. They're amazing. So I'm going to jump in and get finished really quickly because I don't want to keep everybody. I was hoping to keep it at an hour, and I'm so close. And then I'll jump back in and look over any more questions as well. All right. We're just going to go over gears really quickly because I, showed you how to get under the Jeep and look and see what axle you have. And your second choice is I'm going to go ahead and send you to your build sheet where you can actually find out exactly what you have on your Jeep. Your gears will be listed on there as well. A quick overview. A non-Rubicon and non-special edition has the standard 345. So your gear set is going to be a 345. Again, this is non-Rubicon, non-special edition, or anniversary, or anything like that. Standard 345, but there is an upgrade option for the 373 gear. With the Rubicon, they come standard with the 410, but there is a downgrade option to the 373 based on motor choice. And there's an upgrade to 456s with the Recon upgrade package. So we can't say every Rubicon has 410 gears in the JLUs. There's now a wider range of what you could have if you have a Rubicon. You could have the standard 410s, depending on other optional upgrades you make. They could be 373s, and if you do the upgraded Recon, they could be 456s. So basically, Rubicon can have 373s, standard 410s. So that's what they come with if you don't make any other changes, or 456s. Your non-Rubicon, non-special editions, anniversaries are going to be 345s, but there is an upgrade option for the 373. So hopefully that is helpful because, again, I feel like the biggest change has been with the JLUs. Uh, I mean, the JKJKUs had where you would put in an option and it would change something else. That's kind of just how it's always been. You have your standard platform. Then when you start to make any upgrades or any optional modifications, it starts to affect this standard. So whatever you make over here may affect over here, like I kind of showed you in that first sticker. So that's just something to keep in mind. So if you go to a dealership and you're like, all right, I want the a Rubicon. You need to look and see if it's standard, if there are any additional upgrades that have been made, and see what gear set is in it. Same thing if you have a non-Rubicon, it's not a special edition, anniversary, anything like that. Standard, they're going to come with 345s, but there are upgrade options for 373s. So we're going to have to start getting in the habit of really asking a lot of questions if we are going to be in the market to buy. So this should help you get an idea of what the range is, what the standards are for your model of Jeep, and then also what different changes could be made based on the different upgrades. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you how to get your build sheet. So I wanted to share this with you because I don't want any confusion. I will go ahead and email this and I'm going to post it. What I'm doing is I'm going to share this live, this live link right here. Oh, nope, I can't do it till I'm done. All right. Sorry, ladies. I will share it in just a second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share the live link. At the end of it, there's an equals sign. I have in parentheses, it says enter your VIN number here. So the easiest way is to click on the live link. It is going to open up into a different browser. It's going to be a dead page. After that equals sign, click on it, put in your VIN number, and hit enter. It will bring up your entire build sheet for your Jeep. I know I did not go in depth today into all the different models like Sport, Sport S, the Altitudes, Rubicons, Saharas, special edition like the Moab, different Jeeps. I'd like to put together a class to be able to do that with you ladies because I know they're all a little different as well. So as soon as we jump off, I will go ahead and share this with you. But I want to thank you for spending this time with me. So what is the next step? I'm going to share with you. You can grab your build. And that way you can actually get your build that is specific for your Jeep and get all the information. And the great thing about that is I can explain to you what the differences could be. I can explain to you and be like, oh, it could be this if you have this, or it could be this if you have this, and like with gears, depending on what changes you made. But the great thing is if you go get your build sheet, you know exactly what is on your Jeep. There is no guessing, no what ifs, no trying to figure out what upgrades you have, what changes. This is concrete facts for you. So this is your start before you do your design your Jeep build plan or any mods. This is also going to act as your My Jeep specs for your design your Jeep build worksheets. So if you're going through the design your Jeep build classes with me, once you get that, that is going to be your My Jeep specs sheet that you can carry forward with you as we're going through the rest of our design your Jeep build classes. If you're interested, I wanted to do this. So let me know what you think, because I know that was a lot. And then there might be questions once you get your build sheet and it shows what you have. So if you're interested, let's go get your exact build sheet on your Jeep and then jump on with me next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And let's make our February educational class about you. So bring your Jeep specs, bring your build page, and then we can jump on together and go through step by step the actual build sheet and any specific questions that you have for your Jeep once you get everything printed out. That way we can jump back on together one more time. If you're interested, just let me know and either put a yes or I'll be there. Just let me know that you would be interested, and I will drop the link to go get your build sheet. And then I will get that put together and put a link together in a class so we could jump back on one more time. This will be open to anyone. You do not have to have a JLU. Just go ahead, use this link, go grab your Jeep's build sheet, and then let's jump back on next week. Yay! And then we can go through step by step so everyone knows. There we go. Okay, so I just put this in the chat. If you click that link, it's going to pull it up. It'll be a dead page after the equals sign. All you have to do is type in your VIN number and put enter. So, Beth, I will make sure to set up so that you can go ahead and get a reminder. No problem whatsoever. So I will share as soon as we jump off for today. And as soon as we're done, I'll get all that set up and I'll share it with you. It'll be tomorrow. So I'll make sure to make up a class and I'll go ahead and get it set up and then I'll share it. And then that way you can get a reminder and I will send an email with that information as well. So again, thank you for spending this time with me, for jumping on here, working through. I know it's a lot and it's a lot of confusion and things coming at you, but I felt like it was so important to really start to break this down together to help you know what you really have with your Jeep. Thank you, ladies. You ladies are awesome. I will see you next Tuesday, Wednesday. Let me look. We're going to do Wednesday. Next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will make up the class. I will put it up that way. Again, I'm not causing confusion, but we'll plan on meeting next Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Jump on here together. We're going to go through all of this. And again, I will help answer questions that you have. Oh, thank you. You ladies are awesome. I love jumping on here with you. So thank you so much. Again, grab that link. If you have any questions about any of that, drop it below. I will keep an eye on the chat as well to see if anything new comes in once we're done with class. And I will have everything up for you tomorrow to share what we're going to do next. So have a fantastic rest of your Thursday. We are almost at Friday. Almost TGIF. Almost TGIF. We're getting so close. So thank you again. I greatly appreciate it. And I will see you next week, if not before. So have a fantastic Friday, amazing Jeep end. And I can't wait to share more information and work through things with you. So thank you again. Have an amazing weekend. And I will see you next time. Bye, everybody.